Have you ever wondered why the most dangerous battles are not fought in the daylight, but in the silence of your own bed at night? Why do some women wake up chained to the same patterns they swore they would never repeat? Loving men who cannot love back, chasing validation that dissolves by morning, betraying themselves one dream at a time. The mind surrenders when the conscious drifts away, and this is where Carl Jung discovered a forbidden secret. 7 words, whispered before sleep, can rewire destiny itself. 1. Desire is the echo of the wound. Why do women ache the deepest for the very men who withhold love from them? Why does attraction flare not toward those who offer safety, but toward those who ignite uncertainty, distance, and hunger? The answer is not romance, it is repetition. The unconscious seeks to heal by reliving pain, yet in doing so, it becomes enslaved by it. Attraction becomes addictive when it mirrors unhealed wounds. A woman may mistake a controlling man for stability or an emotionally distant lover for mystery because the patterns of childhood rejection masquerade as passion. She believes she is choosing freely, but truly, she is reenacting unfinished trauma on an endless loop. Unawareness of this truth leaves her vulnerable, drawn again and again to men who wound her sense of worth, who feed illusions of love, but never its substance. She may try harder, give more, sacrifice everything, but still she remains unseen. Depletion replaces love, emptiness replaces belonging, and she begins to confuse suffering with intimacy. Carl Jung revealed that until the unconscious is brought to light, it rules life silently, disguising bondage as choice. The solution lies in shadow work, acknowledgement, not escape. Desire must be traced back to the origin wound. Once she names it, abandonment, rejection, betrayal, she begins to dissolve the magnet that keeps her bound. The moment the shadow is faced, attraction transforms. What once enslaved now loses its grip. Like Persephone descending into the underworld only to return with power, a woman must venture into the darkness of desire's deception. There, she discovers that what she calls love has often been longing for her own lost wholeness. Picture yourself at midnight, holding the key to a locked chamber within your own heart. Will you keep chasing phantoms at the door, or will you finally turn the key inward? You heal not when another chooses you, but when you stop abandoning yourself. But once the wound echoes less, something else begins to rise. Truth far more terrifying. The dangers of silent self-betrayal. 2. Every rejection is self-rejection first. Why does rejection cut so deeply, tearing the soul in ways far larger than the event itself? Why does one unanswered message or one fading lover feel like proof of unworthiness? Because the external wound reopens the deeper internal one, the place where a woman unconsciously rejects herself long before anyone else does. When a woman lives craving acceptance, she becomes fragile before the world. Every criticism strikes her as a verdict. Every silence feels like abandonment. In truth, the suffering is not born from the man who walked away. It is born from the fragments of herself she abandoned first. Each unspoken need, each silenced boundary, each yes said when she longed to say no, builds a hidden graveyard of self-betrayal. The cost of this unawareness is devastating. She becomes a chameleon, bending her essence to please lovers, friends, society, only to end up invisible in her own life. Rejection becomes intolerable because it mirrors what she secretly already feels, unwanted by her own soul. The tragedy is not the leaving, it is the forgetting of herself. The solution comes from reclaiming radical self-loyalty. Shadow work demands she confronts the ways she has denied her own truth, how she has minimized her value, how she has clipped her own wings. Jung taught that only by dissolving the projections, realizing the man who abandons is merely embodying her unclaimed shadow. Can she take her power back? Imagine a queen stepping into her throne room surrounded by mirrors. Each reflection once showed her smaller, weaker, undeserving. But as she looks again, the illusion shatters. She sees herself as she always was, sovereign, complete, untouchable by rejection. Close your eyes tonight and whisper to yourself the vow. No one's absence defines my worth. When you no longer abandon yourself, the world loses power to reject you. And yet, from the ashes of rejection, another force awakens. Beyond the wound, beyond betrayal, lies the forbidden truth about the shadows we fall in love with. That is where we now descend next. 3. You desire what you secretly despise. Why is it that the very qualities women claim to despise in men are often the ones that seduce them most powerfully? Why does the heart lurch toward the aloof man who withholds instead of the one who offers without game? This paradox is not random. It is the unconscious attraction to one's own disowned shadow. The unconscious projects what is unclaimed. A woman who has exiled her own aggression, wildness, or unapologetic power may feel both repelled and magnetized by a man who embodies those traits without apology. What she cannot yet integrate within herself becomes the forbidden magnet she falls towards. This is why women often mistake arrogance for confidence, control for strength, and indifference for mystery. It is the psyche seeking out fragments it has banished from the conscious self. The danger is profound. She falls not for the man himself, but for the shadow he symbolizes. And so, when intoxication fades, she wakes bound to someone incompatible, someone who feeds on her self-denial. She remains under the illusion that she is choosing love, when in truth she is desperate to meet parts of herself that were never given permission to live. Carl Jung wrote that falling in love is often the meeting of two unconscious wounds. Until awareness dawns, love becomes less a union and more a collision of shadows. The answer lies not in demonizing desire, but in integrating it, consciously claiming the qualities she once fled from. A woman who dares to embrace her own power no longer chases men who misuse it. Picture a serpent coiled in the grass. Its presence both terrifies and fascinates. To avoid it is to remain ruled by fear. To accept that serpent within, its instinct, its unapologetic force, is to disarm the need to find it in someone else. Imagine yourself tonight, closing your eyes and whispering, "What I seek in others already lives within me." The man you chase often reveals the power you refuse to claim. And yet, hidden beneath the projections of desire lies another far darker chains, those of emotional addiction, disguised as love. 4. Trauma bonds masquerade as soulmates. Have you ever noticed how the most intoxicating relationships are often the most destructive? Why does a woman feel tied endlessly to a man who hurts her as if his absence would hollow her existence? This is the cruel alchemy of the trauma bond, devotion built not from love, but from the repetition of unresolved pain. The pattern begins in wounds left long ago, a child craving a parent's attention, learning to equate neglect with love, inconsistency with intimacy. That same nervous system, conditioned to chaos, now finds comfort only in turmoil. Thus, love feels most real when it is paired with fear of loss, jealousy, withdrawal, and return. She becomes addicted to the highs and lows of dysfunction, the dopamine of hope, the terror of abandonment. The consequences are merciless. A woman chained to trauma bonds sacrifices her entire identity to preserve connection. She becomes unable to imagine herself without this bond, even when it poisons her. Loyalty overshadows self-preservation, and she loses months, years, even decades to a cycle that never truly gives her what she seeks. The breakthrough emerges when awareness pierces the veil, realizing that the tie to him is not love, but an addiction to pain that feels familiar. Realizing that breaking free will feel worse before it feels better, because the nervous system screams against peace it has never known. But beyond that threshold lies liberation unimagined, a love unbound by chaos, rooted in wholeness rather than lack. Myth tells of Medea, bound by passion to Jason, sacrificing herself endlessly until she was nothing but shadow. Trauma bonds are modern Medea chains, unholy vows sealed not by destiny, but by wounds. To wake is to cut those chains before they consume life itself. Tonight, as you lie in silence, close your eyes and envision scissors of fire. Picture yourself cutting the invisible cords between you and every person who feeds on your pain, every bond forged in chaos rather than truth. Love that wounds is not love at all. It is the shadow of a wound wearing love's mask. But once you sever the chains of bondage, a new abyss appears, the silence of worth. Or if not trauma, then what truly defines love? That revelation is where the next descent takes us. 5. Self-betrayal is the silent poison of desire. Why does a woman, even while longing for devotion, compromise her own truth without realizing she is drinking poison sip by sip? Why does she say yes when her soul whispers no? Stay when every cell in her body aches to leave, give when she is already empty? Because the hunger for belonging convinces her that betrayal of herself is the price of being loved by another. This is the most invisible form of destruction, not the cruelty of abandonment, but the slow erosion of self. With each moment she silences her voice, she builds a prison around her spirit. Relationships founded on self-betrayal do not collapse immediately. They dissolve her in secret. She becomes an actress in her own life, wearing roles that suffocate her authenticity for the sake of keeping peace or keeping him. The danger of this is devastating. Love built on the sacrifice of truth is never love. It becomes a distorted mirror where she no longer sees herself. And tragically, the more she erases herself to be chosen, the more invisible she becomes, not just to him, but to herself. The solution begins in radical inner revolt. Jung insisted that individuation, the process of becoming whole, demands one stop betraying the deepest self. Shadow work unearths the exact moments of self-abandonment, the text she wished she didn't send, the silence she kept when words burned inside her, the time she made herself small so someone else could feel big. By confronting these betrayals without excuse, she begins to reclaim integrity. Like a phoenix consumed in flames, self-betrayal must be burned away for rebirth to occur. The fire is painful, walking away from men who exploit her giving, rejecting the illusion of love disguised as sacrifice. But only in the ashes can new life rise. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, imagine standing before a mirror, watching a version of yourself step out of the reflection. This version does not beg, bend, or bow. She looks at you and whispers, "Stop leaving me for them." The one who betrays herself for love never truly receives it. But beyond betrayal lies another abyss, the revelation that silence, when chosen, becomes power rather than weakness. This leads us into the next hidden truth. 6. Silence is seduction, not surrender. Why do some women chase endlessly, exhausting themselves with words, while others appear magnetic without speaking at all? Why does silence have a power greater than pleading, chasing, or convincing? Because silence, when chosen from self-worth rather than fear, transforms into an archetypal force of attraction. The woman who learns the art of silence does not chase closure, does not beg to be seen, does not degrade her value with explanations that were never earned. Silence is no longer suppression, it is sovereignty. It signals to the unconscious of others that she is not dependent on external validation to exist. Her absence begins to echo louder than her presence ever did. Without this awareness, many women weaponize silence incorrectly, falling into passive aggression, manipulation, or fear-based withdrawal. But true silence emerges only from strength when a woman refuses to participate in dynamics that insult her soul. It is not a tactic, but an aura. It redefines her as untouchable, compelling him to reckon not with her words, but with her absence. The solution begins with a shift of perspective. Imagine silence not as emptiness, but as a throne. Imagine yourself sitting upon it, unshaken, while others scramble for your attention. This silence is not weak. It is the void where power is born. Jung called such transformation an initiation. What once symbolized suppression now becomes a holy gesture of inner command. Like the moon that governs tides without a single sound, feminine silence bends reality without protest. She does not need to chase, argue, or persuade. The very stillness awakens the yearning in others to rise, to prove, to return. Visualize this tonight. The quiet of your room is not emptiness. It is your kingdom. Hold your silence as law, not weapon. Let it reshape how others see you, not because you need them, but because you finally realize your voice is sovereign. She who masters silence no longer seeks to be heard, because she already knows she is undeniable. But from the throne of silence rises an even sharper truth. The way worth itself becomes a battlefield of illusions. That confrontation now awaits in the shadows of the next descent. 7. Worth is an illusion until claimed. Why do some women cry out for love, trying to convince men of their value, while others stand silently and the world bends toward them? Why does worth seem like something to be proven, bargained for, or endlessly tested? Because until claimed, worth is nothing but an illusion reflected through the eyes of others. The unconscious plays a deadly trick. It convinces a woman that her worth is external, that it will only be real once he acknowledges it, once society affirms it, once others validate it. She chases compliments like rations, collects male attention like currency, but still feels bankrupt the moment she is alone. Worth that depends on recognition is fragile because it belongs not to her, but to anyone who might withdraw it. The cost of this blindness is immense. She may build her life pleasing, proving, and outperforming, only to discover that no matter how much is given, no matter how much is achieved, emptiness follows. Every man's silence becomes a death sentence, every rejection a grave. She lives waiting for her existence to be stamped with approval, but that stamp never arrives. The solution is reclamation. Jung revealed that individuation is the act of embodying one's inner authority. No external judge, no external lover, no choir of voices has the right to grant what was always born within. Worth must be self-legislated. The moment a woman decides, from within, that her worth is non-negotiable, her presence shifts. She no longer waits to be chosen, she becomes the chooser. Like the ancient goddess Isis, who gathered her fragments to make herself whole, a woman must collect each scattered piece of her worth from the hands she gave it to, ex-lovers, critics, society, family, and claim them back into her own body. Only then does she stand sovereign, not begging the world to see her, but commanding it silently by existing. Imagine standing on a pedestal of your own making, not waiting for applause, not begging for an audience, simply radiating with the certainty that the pedestal belongs to you and always has. The moment you stop proving yourself, your worth becomes undeniable. Yet beyond this reclamation lies the most forbidden truth. the secret Jung guarded, the 7 words whispered at night that reprogram the unconscious. This is where the descent meets revelation. 8. The 7 words that rewrite desire. What happens when the body sleeps, when the conscious mind quiets and the gates of the unconscious open? This is the hour when suggestion carves its way into destiny. Jung understood that symbols hold the key to transformation, and a single phrase repeated in the hushed silence before sleep can reshape attraction, desire, and self-perception itself. The unconscious does not respond to reason, but to repetition, imagery, and command. The 7 words are not a spell, but a declaration of eternal law, one that rewrites the endless cycles of rejection, self-betrayal, and chasing. As they echo within, they dismantle the illusions that chain desire to wound. The psyche absorbs them in dream time, feeding on them like nectar until they are no longer words, but identity. Without this ritual, the mind awakens the same, day after day, repeating the same attachments, seeking the same pain, reliving the same unconscious plays. Life becomes déjà vu, a cycle of forgotten nights and remembered regrets. Love, power, worth, all dictated by shadows she never chose. But with this whispered invocation, the trajectory shifts in silence. She begins to awaken, no longer craving the unavailable, no longer mistaking chaos for intimacy, no longer bargaining with her worth. Men respond differently. Choices open where before none appeared. It is as if the world begins bowing to an agreement she made not with others, but with her own soul. The words themselves hold no magic without her belief. But once whispered with devotion before slumber, they become an anchor, tethering the unconscious to sovereignty instead of lack. Slowly, the woman who spent her life begging becomes sovereign in silence. The unconscious, once enemy, now becomes her greatest ally. Picture yourself tonight, lying still, darkness pressing gently against your skin. With one breath, you let go of the day. With another, you rise into dreams. Just before surrendering, whisper the 7 words, a timeless vow, a law written into your being. Feel their vibration sealing you like golden armor. When morning comes, you no longer wake as a seeker. You wake as the sought. Destiny bends to the command of the unconscious when you dare to speak the truth it has waited to hear. Desire is the echo of the wound. It binds you to the very cage you swore to escape. Rejection is self-rejection first. The voice that leaves is only repeating the silence you've held within. You desire what you secretly despise. Shadows you've abandoned return, disguised as lovers you cannot resist. Trauma bonds masquerade as soulmates. Intoxication conceals a prison built on ancient pain. Self-betrayal is the silent poison of desire. Every yes spoken against your heart stains your own throne. Silence is seduction, not surrender. Absence becomes a crown when chosen as sovereignty. Worth is illusion until claimed. No mirror, no man, no praise can give what already belongs to you. 7 words whispered at night, the hidden vow that reprograms the unconscious, sealing your soul in sovereignty. And so, the night returns, the moment the masks dissolve and the unconscious awakens to its throne. Here, in the intimacy of silence, truth is no longer abstract. It is a mirror pressed against your skin. Every wound, every betrayal, every hunger you once mistook for love was never punishment but initiation. Desire itself was the shadow's map, leading you back to the parts of yourself you silenced, chained, or abandoned. Now those fragments call to you, not to be feared, but to be reclaimed. The secret Jung unveiled is that nothing outside you can complete you. Every projection is a ghost of your own disowned power. The real alchemy is integration, refusing to chase, refusing to beg, refusing to bleed in order to be seen. For when the shadow is embraced, attraction transforms, suffering dissolves, and a new presence emerges. The woman who no longer performs, but radiates. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. So tonight, when you whisper the words into darkness, know you are not conjuring destiny. You are awakening the remembered truth of your sovereignty. Your silence has begun. Your return has already started. Subscribe to Jung Mind, where your shadow speaks and your soul finally listens. What part of you is still pretending that pain is proof of love?